My partner is a big drinker and also has an overactive bladder, which leads him to wetting the bed basically every weekend when he drinks. If he was in his early 20s, I'd give him time to grow out of it. But at nearly 40, I'm heavily considering leaving the relationship because it's so sad and unattractive, and I don't want this for my future.
If they're drinking to a point where they wet the bed every weekend, that is a drinking problem. That is an issue with alcohol. It's so deeply immature.
My partner, male 37, is a big drinker and also has an overactive bladder, which leads him to wetting the bed basically every weekend when he drinks. I've expressed my discontent with this numerous times throughout our 3-year relationship, and I've tried to help by buying nappies, setting alarms during the night, and trying to trick him into sleeping in other rooms. I've also pushed him to see a urologist, where he now takes medication to urinate less throughout the day. However, as the bedwetting is primarily a problem from alcohol, he is frequently still wetting the bed. This impact is extended to when we go away with friends for weddings, on holidays, etc., and he makes no effort to drink less, and I'm left to monitor him throughout the night to make sure he gets up to pee and doesn't wet the bed, as we will then have nowhere else to sleep. I'm at my wit's end, and I have gone to see a relationship counsellor who basically said, long story short, that if I try to change the unchangeable, and I'm going to drive myself crazy, and I basically need to learn to live with it. My partner has an enormous victim mentality about this, and his only emotional response is that it's not fair that his mates can drink as much as they want without this problem, and why me, it's not fair. Am I being unreasonable in expecting him to drink less to stop this problem? If he was in his early 20s, I'd give him time to grow out of it. But at nearly 40, I'm heavily considering leaving the relationship because it's so sad and unattractive, and I don't want this for my future. Please tell me if I'm being too hard on him like he says I am.
I cannot even believe, like, when I read this question, and for so many people who messaged in the Facebook group, I was like, wow. Wow. Okay. Everyone accepts different things in their relationship. Everybody has a different benchmark for what they will accept from their partner when it comes to behavior, when it comes to things that they can and they can't control. Everyone's level is different. Yours is very different to where mine is, because I already wouldn't be in this relationship because of this. But I do understand what the therapist has said, even if I don't agree with it. What they're saying to you is that if you want to be in a relationship with this person and they are absolutely not going to change this behavior, then there has to come a point where you accept that this behavior is not going to change. And that's something where your standards drop because you want to be with them specifically. I would like to approach it from the other perspective, which is I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who requires me to drop my standards so much because they prefer to drink than to stop pissing the bed. Like, for me, I read this and I would say your partner has a problem with alcohol. If they're drinking to a point where they wet the bed every weekend or every time you go away to an event, that is a drinking problem. That is an issue with alcohol. And when he says, oh, it's so unfair that my friends can do X, Y, Z, but I can't, it's so deeply immature. Like, if your friends stick their head in the oven, are you going to? Like, that mentality, I would say that to a 4-year-old. And the fact that you have to say that to a 40-year-old so deeply gives me the ick. It is so childish to me that you are left in a situation where you are the one who is having to try and fix this problem. And when you're saying it leaves us with nowhere to sleep, or you're having to go and buy nappies, or you're having to clean up, he is a grown fucking adult and you are not his mum. You are not responsible for his incontinence. And it would be very different if he was incontinent because he'd had prostate cancer or incontinent because he had some sort of urology issue. But the fact is that it comes from alcohol. And so to me, I'm like, your problem here is that your partner has an issue with alcohol.
I said exactly, very much along these lines in the Facebook group when I initially commented on this, and I said that I would have a much deeper sympathy if this was purely a medical issue. But it's not, because he is able to not wet the bed.
Every other day of the week.
Yeah, the thing I really pointed out is that for him, it seems as though there aren't consequences to his behaviour. And that's where I think things have progressively gotten worse.
Yeah.
I question why. Firstly, I find it very strange that he doesn't have shame about this. Why is he not the one having to fix these situations? Why is he not the one to have to tell your friends while you're away, hey, sorry, we need to get some fresh linen because I've wet the bed again? You know, it just seems as though there's no consequence for him because you care about him so much and you're so worried about him feeling shame that you do it all for him. There was actually a comment by Tennille in the Facebook group that I thought it just summarized absolutely everything, and she said it better than I did. She said, would I leave a good relationship because someone had an overactive bladder and wet the bed? No. Would I leave a relationship because my partner treated me like his parent, didn't listen to my clear communication, didn't take into account my feelings and the effects his life had on me, was having an issue based on his own actions and choices and still chose not to do anything about it, someone who decided he was the victim and I just have to live with the consequences of it, and someone who is clearly self-absorbed and didn't respect me? Yes, I absolutely would.
Drop mic.
Yeah, this summarized that it comes down to a respect issue.
100%.
And I actually feel so frustrated for you because the audacity of this person to treat you like you are worthy of being pissed on in the middle of the night. You know, like, how is drinking with his friends to the extent that he does, because he thinks it's fair that if old mate has a beer, he gets to have one too. How is that more important to you than urinating on your partner?
It's just fucking wild to me. But also, like, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been in a situation where a partner's drunk so much that they've pissed the bed? Because I have.
I haven't actually.
I have, and I've also been in a situation where I've had people stay at my house and their boyfriend got so drunk that they pissed in my bed.
Wow.
So I've been on both sides of this
Yeah.
coin. I came home one day and my mattress was out on my balcony drying out because their boyfriend had wet my bed. And to be fair, she was furious and he was embarrassed and he had to come to me and apologize and he tried to clean it. But like, I appreciate at least the embarrassment and I appreciate at least the acknowledgement of it. But also that relationship, one of the biggest reasons why their relationship broke up and they were married is because he had a drinking problem and because when he would drink, he would piss the bed. And so this was repeated behavior that he took absolutely no accountability for. And so I think that there comes a point where you're like, do I want to live like this? You're not 20, and you've said it. If you're 20, you would have given him allowances. I mean, the reference I have is when I was in my 20s, I dated a guy who, when he drank too much, he would wet the bed. He did it twice. He never did it again. He was humiliated. It was like he needed to do it once to be humiliated in the first place, and then he needed to do it twice to know what his limit was. And he was like, oh, I got there again. That's what that limit was.
Right.
And he never, ever did it again. But it's exactly what you said, Keish. It's the lack of embarrassment around it. And I'm not saying that, like, if you're, and I want to be clear, I think we already have. If you are someone who has incontinence issues that you can't control, I don't want you to feel that there's this deep shame around it. But if it's something that you can control, but you are not because you are preferencing alcohol, that I think is something that is pretty shameful. And it's something that I think you should be at least trying to get to the reason as to why. Why are you needing to drink on a weekend to a point where you don't have the ability to wake up to control your bladder? Like, that is past the point of normal drinking. And I, as someone who's in my 40s, I wouldn't want to be in this relationship. Wouldn't matter how much I love that person. It wouldn't matter how incredible they were in all the other ways, because what they're doing is they're consistently showing you that they don't respect you enough to care about your feelings or to care about how this impacts you. And if it was happening once every 6 months or once a year or once every whatever, a frequency of which you could tolerate, but every fucking week, every time there's an important event on, I just, like, it's just not a relationship that I could possibly see myself being happy in, because this would constantly be something that you're dealing with.
If you are determined on staying in this relationship, which it actually doesn't sound like you are. You said you're at your wit's end. You're kind of at the point where you're about to break, and I think that is so reasonable.
No, also the thing you've said here is, please tell me if I'm being too hard on him like he says that I am. No, he's gaslighting you.
Yeah.
You are being gaslit into believing that you haven't been tolerant or understanding or accepting enough. That's what this is. You've been manipulated to feel guilty about the fact that you have adverse reactions to this. You have been manipulated to feel as though your boundaries, your set of standards, the things that you want for yourself, that you're asking for too much. And you absolutely asking for a husband who doesn't piss the bed because he's so drunk is not asking for too much. That is the bare minimum. The bare minimum.
I think the only way you will be able to progress in this relationship is if you get to the heart of why he's feeling the need to drink. Often with any type of substance abuse, alcoholism, there is a reason, there is a deep reason why people feel that they need to drink to the extent that they do. Is it to forget something? Is it to not have social anxiety? And I know I'm giving so much leniency here, and it's not my natural reaction. I'm just trying to think of this a little bit more wholeheartedly. I think if you're able to understand the reason why he feels the need to drink to that extent, it might give you a little bit more context, and it may lead you to a potential solution. The only other solution to me is that you break up. And that's why I'm kind of trying to give this other alternative, because that's the only thing. This person, to me, seems like he has a real issue with taking responsibility and accountability.
Yeah. And it's really hard because like when you say like you've been to see a counselor about it, you've been to speak to a therapist, I find it so interesting that often the person who isn't the issue will go and seek the therapy, right? The person who is asking, literally begging their partner to change is the one that goes to the therapist. But nothing's going to change in your relationship unless the person who has the issue also wants to go and speak to a counselor, also is showing up to the relationship with the same wants and desires for it to be better as what you do. So I feel really sorry for you that the feedback or that the advice that you've received is that you just have to accept it. I don't want you to interpret that as though you're not being understanding enough. What they're trying to say to you in that moment is that if this is a relationship that you want, you can't change this on your own. So the only way of changing it is to change your mindset around it. But I don't think changing your mindset is the solution here. I think he needs to fucking step up. And sometimes you have to realize what it is that you've lost, the consequences of your actions in order to actually change. And that's what it feels like is the situation here.